White screen. The rising flame logo on top. Black text appearing in the middle as if being typed says, in April 2020, we launched a series of online events for persons with disabilities and their friends stuck at home and cut off from their communities of care and support to lift spirits, reduce anxiety, and have exciting discussions. In September 2020, we were back with Vellapanti 2.0. Life on the Spectrum. Srinidhi Raghavan in conversation with Priyangee Guha and Rakshita Shekhar. 16th October 2020. Pictures of all three speakers in the middle of the screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for our third session of Vellapanti 2.0. On behalf of Rising Flame, I'm Nidhi Goyal, the founder and executive director. On behalf of the entire team, I'd like to welcome all of you on this Friday evening in India. I know all of you are joining from different time zones, different parts of the world. And in COVID times, anyway, all the time feels like different time zones and weird times. So, really glad. Vellapanti is really a space that we wanted to create for people with disabilities and friends to come together, to have conversations, and to see how um, various issues, how various identities, how various themes come together in lives of people with disabilities. Our first two sessions were, the first one was on masculinity and disability. Our second session of Vellapanti 2.0 was on online dating for persons with disabilities, and here we are with our third session called Life on the Spectrum. We have fabulous speakers here with us, but before I introduce the facilitator and the speakers for the day, a few housekeeping rules. We're on two platforms. Many of you have joined us here on Zoom. Many of you have joined us via the Facebook Live. So thank you again for joining us on multiple platforms. We also wanted to share here that the meeting is being recorded while it's being live streamed on Zoom. Anonymity can be maintained still if participants wanted to keep their cameras off, and any questions anonymously could be messaged either directly to the handle on Zoom called Rising Flame, or if you are on Facebook and you still want to anonymously ask a question, you could email intern@risingflame.org. We're just typing this out on the Facebook live stream as well, that if you have any questions and you want to ask them anonymously, you could write to intern@risingflame.org, and here you could write directly to the account called Rising Flame on Zoom. So once again, welcome everybody, hoping that all of you are able to keep your microphones mute during the duration of the call, except when you're invited to ask the question. And without any further delays, I'd like to begin the session of Life on the Spectrum, quickly introducing the Rising Flame team here. In case you also want to ping any of us, I am Nidhi Goyal, as I introduced myself. We have here Srinidhi Raghavan, our co-leads program, and she will also be facilitating the conversation with our guests today. We have Chenika Iyer, programs associate, and they're helping us live stream on Facebook. So if there are any interruptions, you know who to catch. We also have with us Fiza and Niyar. They both are fantastic interns working with us, and we have our captioners, Niharika and Roshni, and our sign language interpreter, Priyanka. Um, Once again, the links to the captioning document are available in the chat, and you can pin the sign language interpreter's video. The format of this session is going to be with an exciting screening, followed by conversations, followed by Q&A. And I will now invite Shruti to take us through, to also introduce the guests and introduce what we will be watching, because we're very excited to have this conversation about life on the spectrum. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nidhi. I'm really excited, and if you know me well enough, you can see me smiling away to glory because I am very excited to be here. Not just because Vellapanti is always exciting, but because we have today two fantastic guests with us and two people that I have grown to learn about and love and see in public spaces talk about their life on the spectrum and so much more. One of them is Priyangee Guha, and she is a lawyer turned stand-up comedian turned baker turned all kinds of lovely things. She has a really gorgeous newsletter on where she does art as well as talks about her journey on the autism spectrum. So you can definitely look it up. If I remember it correctly, it's called One Tablespoon of Justice. So I do think that you should look it up if you're interested to learn more. Rakshita is an inclusion consultant. She's a special educator. She is all round fantastic. She has spent a good decade of her life trying to make schools accessible for young people, not just on a spectrum, but all kinds of disabilities and lived experiences. She has worked in many ways to ensure that the child is learning in the classroom and actually learning and not everything else. So really excited to have both of them here. Uh, that's all I'm going to introduce about both of them for now. You will hear more from both of them during the course of the evening. We're going to start with a small 15-minute clip from Atypical. It is one of the latest, earliest media representations of autism on screen. We are going to play it on the audio described version so that it's accessible for some of our viewers who might be blind or visually impaired as well. And Atypical, thankfully, on the Netflix platform is audio described, so we can watch it there. So without further delay, I'm going to share my screen and we can begin to watch. And then we will dive straight into the questions with each of the uh, panelists. And then we will have a good 10 to 15-minute slot in the end, which are open for questions for anybody who's participating from the group. So you can ask your questions during the course of the hour, or you can ask it at the end when we are done.
Click on the link in the description box below to watch Atypical on Netflix.
Priyangee and Rakshita, welcome. So, would you like to share a little bit about what you thought about Atypical, what we saw, but also in general media representation of autism?
Rakshita, go ahead.
Go ahead because P comes before R.
It does? Oh yeah, it does. You're right. Okay, sure. So with reference to the clip that we just saw, before I begin, I just wanted to clarify some things. And primarily, these points are applicable only to me and me alone, and they're not generic and they're not universally applicable to everyone because autism is a spectrum and it means different things to different people, like just like how not being an autistic person means to different people. So it's not very different. So the first thing that I wanted to clarify is that whenever I talk about my journey as life in the spectrum, I don't call it a diagnosis. I don't call it a diagnosis because it has an ailment element to it, like, like fever or cold or something. And autism is not an ailment. Um, I usually use I found out or I was assessed. And like I said, not everybody uses these words. It's just more applicable to my context. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is that I don't say I have autism. Again, it sounds like I have cold, I have cough, I have fever. And if I take like a paracetamol or antibiotic, my autism will go away. That is not the case. I usually use it like how I say I am a lawyer, I am a comedian, I am a woman, I am how I use my other identities. It is an identity, and it is one of many identities I have, and an important identity, but again, one of many identities. It's just not the identity that I have. The third thing that I wanted to talk about is, and I think it's very important to highlight that I am a verbal autistic, and by that I mean that I can speak. And I know that many people have come across media representation, or even in their own families, about autistic folks who don't speak. And there are autistic folks who are nonverbal as well, but I am verbal, and it is very important to sort of highlight this distinction, that this is one of the privileges, or I won't say privilege, but this is one of the distinction that I have. This is a little bit about me. And in that context, when I see atypical, my first response, and I will only restrict my comment to the first 15 minutes that we saw together, not the entire series. The first reaction that I got was that the parents, even though they're very supportive and kind and whatever, they sort their body language, their tone constantly reflect how Sam has been very difficult to deal with. And in that context, I often feel glad that I had a very late assessment. By the time I found out that I was in the spectrum, I was, you can say, a lot more confident with my mind and body. Well, there were moments where the imposter pops out, which happens with everybody. And I have a social system, a social support system, where I have a group of ladies who sort of makes sure that the imposter goes back, and we do that to each other. And I was a lot established in my career, and I was a lot more mature to be able to process the information. If it happened when I was younger, and in the societal context that I come from, I think I would have faced a lot of challenges in getting access to things that I got access to in life, not because I am incapable, but because the society around me would have thought I am not ready for it. You know how you saw Sam's mother say, you cannot donate the brain, you cannot donate the brain, you are too young to date, or he's different from us, and therefore he cannot date. And how she's always scared whenever her phone rings. And I don't mean to undermine the challenges a parent may face while raising an autistic child, but at the same time, it is that kind of fear, that kind of anxiety is probably same as if you had a neurotypical child, because of how the world is out there. But if it were official that I am autistic, I think I would have faced a lot of challenge in, like, stepping out of home, being independent, being across the country. And I don't think I would have had access to a lot of things that I had in life. And particularly, how you will notice how when Sam wanted to date, and the kind of advice that he got, make eye contact, or mama sita, or lie, don't talk about penguins. And these are the kind of advice, not only in the dating scenario. I think I have received these advice everywhere, in professional setting, in personal setting. And they all come from a place of care, because you see, these are rules that society has, and you have not made it, I have not made it. These are pre-written rules. You play by it because that is how it comes to you naturally. It does not come to me naturally, so I sort of learn it as a muscle memory, and I'm expected to. So um, and that is why a lot of people who've met me in life after I was 10 or 12, they will not even recognize, they will not even know who I really am, because I had started masking or faking or um, pretending to be someone else since I was 10. In technical terms, it is called wearing a mask, which we all understand in 2020, don't we? We are all wearing a mask. Um, What else do I have before I pass on the space to Rakshita? Um, I was particularly offended when therapists used 95 kind of eggs as a punchline. I was offended because it is a kind of information a quote unquote patient shares with a therapist, and to use that as a data point to mock someone was particularly hurtful, and I did not personally appreciate it. Autistic folks are not punchlines. You cannot punch down in comedy. You punch up, and by that I mean that you cannot make fun of people who are less privileged than you. Um, there are several moments I resonated as well. Don't get me wrong, like how people called him weird, how he stims with the rubber band. I mean, I don't use a rubber band. I use some. My stimming is a lot more tempered down or masked or professional, as people would say. Um, I don't understand what people talk about. Like, when he was told, "Get yourself out there, out where." Like, these are conversations. If you know me personally, you would. These are the kind of responses you would get. Um, and hate crowded places. Again, I almost missed my own wedding. I hate crowd that much. I hate people that much. I mean, not people, but crowded people, crowded spaces, noise. So yeah, that's about it. Before I part ways, I just wanted to bring out an interesting fact that Atypical is the show that made me realize that I was on the spectrum before I officially found out. Despite I know you from my answer, you'll probably think I hate the show. I mean, there are criticisms, but at the same time, it was the show that opened my eyes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Priyangee. As somebody who had seen the show before, it's interesting to get some of your viewpoints on the whole as well. Rakshita, what were your thoughts on the small clip we saw, as well as generally media representation?
So general media representation, I think, is getting better in the Western world, I guess. Uh, we have a lot to catch up with. Um, I think we've done only two. We've done Barfi and My Name is Khan. My Name is Khan is horrible, and Barfi is better than My Name is Khan. How so? I watched Atypical only clips on YouTube until last night. So last night I watched it because I was very anxious about what is going to come my way and what am I supposed to talk. So today I got a chance to like revisit it. So write down some things that struck me really. So the first thing is how he calls his stimming that with the rubber band and the finger. How he calls it self-stimulatory behavior. I don't think it stimulates us. I think it regulates us. It soothes us. So I think it should be renamed as self-soothing behavior. Like, I know all the medical textbooks, all the textbooks on autism, even the diagnostic criteria for autism will say self-stimulatory behavior. I don't know how they got that. No, I know how they got it. How they got that phrase, but then I think it should be self-soothing behavior. Then he also says something. All the things I cannot do. That I don't relate to that. I don't think so. Like for me, it's like I can do what I want to do, sort of a thing. So I don't relate to that. Maybe some people will. It comes to me when I'm very, very down, when I'm burnt out, I'm depressed. Uh, like when I'm burnt out, I can't. I even forget to brush my teeth. Uh, I forget to take a bath. So at that time, yeah, it feels like such a task to even remember these little things. So all the things that I cannot do are, yeah, that kind of a statement comes to me when I'm really burnt out. Otherwise, not really. Um, and and then that lady spoke, the Julia, the counselor, she spoke about just have to put yourself out there. Uh, yeah, I mean, where, yeah, of course. But then this whole sentence, no, like I think I think it's very insensitive. I know for neurotypical people, dating is just get out of the house, man, and date is enough, you know, or go to a club, man, and date is enough. But for me, it would be like, okay, go to a club and do what? Like for Sam, it was like, okay, so she's looking at me, so what should I do? So it cannot be just, okay, Sam, you can date. You have to just put yourself out there. You are not trying hard enough. That is why it's not coming to you. No, he's trying a lot hard. He just doesn't know what are the neurotypical ways of dating. I'm sure if it was two autistic people, uh, they would, on the first instance, be like, okay, I like you. You know what? Let's just get married, or just let's look at getting married, or something like that. I don't think they would have gotten into eye contact. आंखों में आंखें डाल के देखो and all that jazz.
I mean, it's really interesting you brought it up because in our last session on online dating with people with disabilities, there was a blind woman who says, "I have no idea what aankhon mein aankhein dalna means." Right? So it's actually this idea of romance is pretty narrow in its implementation, right? Which brings me primarily to the next question, also because you both briefly mentioned it that you had your diagnosis late, right? And it was also in many ways discovering of the self, so what did that feel like, and how did people around you react if you told them, etc.?
For me, I think I took it I took it as a matter of fact, very very matter of fact. It wasn't a big shock or a big deal for me, primarily because like I said, I had watched the entire series of Atypical, and then from there I spiraled into a bit of research. I mean, just exactly how we saw what Sam did, right? Once you need to know something, you need to know something. So it wasn't a shock for me. It was like, okay, now it's on paper. That's about it. However, when other people found out, to be honest, not many people know still. I have still not officially, quote unquote, come out to my parents, for instance, or my family members, apart from a few handful. So I don't know how that will go. But with friends, they were a little taken aback. Those who don't work in the mental health space, especially, because they saw me as an outgoing, articulate, public speaking lawyer activist, and that did not sort of sync well with what they knew about autism spectrum.
Greta
So,
Thunberg's elder sister.
sorry.
Greta Thunberg's elder sister.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think I got most, to be very honest, I've been very selective about who I've been having one-on-one conversations with. So mostly it has been like, give us more resources so that we know better. But I have had some different responses as well, like, you don't look autistic. Oh, these are all things people say to mask uh, some to sort of find excuse for things that you shouldn't have done, or something about, um, autism is only in children and it's a boy thing, and some very different interesting responses, which again I was, based on my research, fully prepared to face. It isn't I'm not the first person in this planet to have faced these responses. So yeah, that's again, it's been a rather short journey for me because I only found out this year. So it's been only a few months, and then we went into lockdown, so there's barely any human interaction. 2020 is how my life is has been for the last so many years, so it is sort of in sync now. Now the world is experiencing life from my point of view, but so that's why it's a rather short experience, so I don't have much insight yet on this.
I also like what you say about what you're saying. I mean, I don't like. Sorry, it's interesting that the first thing people are trying to see is the representations that they know of, right? So, like we were in the conversation also, why media representation in many ways seems important for us is that we have such stereotypical ideas of who is autistic, right? And I think that that's interesting to see that people's first reaction was, you are outgoing, so you cannot be autistic, or the justifications that we come up with as neurotypical people.
And they will always have this one friends, sisters, mothers, somebody who teaches autistic children, and therefore they have sort of volunteered and they have seen a room full of autistic people, and that, like I said, I mean, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
they don't exist. I'm just saying that just like people who are not autistic may vary, it's just that it's just a thing.
Yeah. How has the journey been for you, Rakshita? I know you have written about it a little bit, but how has it been for you?
Um, so I self-diagnosed when my son was 4 months old. I went into a severe burnout. And that's when I started digging deep into what's happening to me. And, the best way to deal with burnout is research. And um, so, yeah, I went to about 9 mental health professionals, and everybody said things like, oh, you're married. That means you can't be autistic. You just had a son. That means you can't be autistic. Like, autistic people can't have an active sexual life or something. And yeah, one of them even said something to the effect of, I should travel from Hyderabad to Bangalore every Friday and then travel outside Bangalore to her clinic and then take therapy from her on how to become a better person. I was like, paise tum hi de do, huh? So I came out of all those meetings just crying, actually. Like inside me, I knew this is all gaslighting, but then I didn't know how to face it. And I was very, very sure of my research. My parents, on the other hand, were very supportive. My husband has been the most supportive. Actually, my husband and my relationship has become much, 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 much better after we've discovered autism, because now we know how to deal with things. We have, like, even my parents are the ones who help us navigate our relationship. So it's actually been a good thing for us in the immediate family. Just like Priyangee, even I have not told people outside this circle. Only my parents, my brother, my husband know. And a few people, I mean, professionally, I have told a lot of people, and many times it's been good, but sometimes it's been horribly bad, the experiences after telling people that I'm autistic. Especially like at work, when I came out that I was autistic, I was told that I have breached the company regulations because I did not um, reveal it at the time of the interview. I said I did not have a diagnosis at the time of interview. Actually, I don't have a formal diagnosis even now. I have a diagnosis of something called social communication disorder, which is half of, like, according to the diagnostic manual, half of autism. And I've recently got my complete evaluation done, and the paperwork is pending, but they've confirmed autism. So my paperwork is taking time to come, but then it's confirmed autism. So like that, and then finally I was let go because they said, oh, autistic people cannot work with autistic children. You have too much anxiety. So I was like, I don't have out of control anxiety. I'm taking medication. And they were like, yeah, that's what we mean. If you're on medication, that means you can lose your mind. So I was like, yeah, okay. That's been my journey. With relationships, otherwise, you didn't ask that, right? No,
No,
okay,
not
you
yet.
didn't ask that.
No, but I think what you're saying is also it's so curious, right? You want neurotypical people to teach autistic people how to be neurotypical, right? Basically, that's what the school is saying, right? They're not,
Yeah.
and in many ways, you're holding back on accessing something that might be useful, right? Instead of learning ways to navigate life as an autistic person, instead you're being told that you need to conform to another, right? Like a aspirational normal that everybody has. And I think that coming back to that also in terms of the video, right, there was a lot of stuff about eye contact and controlling of stimming, etc., and you both mentioned it briefly when we first started talking. So how has that been post the diagnosis for you? But how was it? If you could talk a little bit about the masking in general and the resulting exhaustion from it.
Okay. I can write a PhD on how to pretend to have an eye contact, uh, and not have an eye contact. Like look at the nose, or look behind, or something like that. But
Get the reflection in the eye.
check the exactly, all of those. I particularly like looking at nose point. And they think that I'm looking at their eyes, but it's actually their nose that I'm looking at. I cannot focus, like even as a student, if I had to look at the teacher while they were explaining, I wouldn't register anything. So then I started writing notes, because no teacher likes a student who does not write notes. So that's that, and I would take detailed notes. So that's how I would focus on classes. So as far as masking goes, I have a formula for everything, like a script for everything from the time I step out of home till I come back. If it is a Monday, hi, how's your weekend been? If it is a Monday afternoon, how's your Monday been so far? If it is a Wednesday, oh, 2.5 days down, 2.5 days to go. So it's almost like a formula that I have for like elevator conversation. And if everything fails in Ireland, where I live right now, you can always talk about the weather because it changes 5 times in 5 hours. It's great, or as people say it here, it's grand. So it's with I think one thing that I was told uh, was that yes, professionals help, but nothing teaches you coping mechanisms like real life practice. And with life, I have come across numerous ways to mask. So what happens is, when I am outside, people think I am extremely social and extremely extrovert and extremely bubbly. I don't know what that means. Uh, uh, it sounds like gas, doesn't it? Like, something that needs Digene or something as an intervention. So people think all of that. So, but by the time I come back, I'm completely exhausted from all the acting. And at the end of the day, at the end of the week, it makes me wonder, why have I not received my Oscar already? Because I've successfully acted being someone for so many years and nobody's realized it. So yeah, that's about.
Rakshita, what about you and social relationships and life? You're on mute.
Like Priyangee said, I think I started marketing also at the age of 12. And people who have only seen me before that age and not seen me afterward, and when they meet me now, they're like, oh my God, is this Rakshita? She has become so bubbly. Same thing. Oh, she's talking so much. Oh, she's become very good now. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is good. Like just pretending to say hello, auntie. I used to stand in front of the mirror and I used to practice for hours and hours how much to smile, how to wave. Hello, auntie. Khana khaya? And my mother used to be like, no, don't smile so much. Like how that boy says to Sam, no, 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 don't smile so much. Tone it down a little bit. No, no, not that much also. Like smile a little more. And even now, when I have to go to my in-laws' house, like we have one whole day of preparation, my husband and I.
We lost you,
Like,
Rakshita.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, I used to practice a lot, and I used to read a lot of books, like how he, because we didn't have internet and computer at that time, so I used to read a lot of books on what to say to a friend the first time you meet them, and my mother used to take me, like I used to be so reluctant to go out of the house. I hate exercise even now. You can see, I think. Um, so my mother used to like uh, cheat me into getting out of the house. She said, I'm feeling very, very bored. I want to go out. So I said, okay, fine, go out. She said, no, 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 no. I'm also feeling very lonely. Come, no, with me. I said, please help me, no. I said, okay, fine. And I would go with her for a walk, and then she would catch hold of some children playing on the road. I was like, hello, this is my daughter Rakshita, and she will play with you. And this happened till my 8th standard. So she used to like coach me on what to say, how to play. I remember even after marriage, like before marriage, she told me every day you should go and stand behind your mother-in-law and you have to ask her, Amma, what should I help you with? I said, okay, fine. And I went like how Priyangee said, no, script. So I did that like a good girl. And then my mother-in-law said, I don't want any help from you. So I said, okay, and I came off. And then this used to happen every day. And then it became Rakshita kuch kaam nahi karti hai ghar pe. And I was like, but aap hi ne bola mat karo. So yeah.
Right.
So,
No, it's
and it used to be very, 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 very stressful. It's horribly stressful.
right.
When I was in my 10th, give me one more minute to say this. Because
No, please take your time.
Yeah.
When I was in my 10th, no, when I was in my 9th, I think it started. The good girl became a bad girl in the sense that at school, teachers don't bother if you are silent girl. If you're a girl, you're silent, you're trying to study, you're to your own self. Teachers actually like that. So at school, it was Rakshita was a very good girl. But the moment I used to come back home, I had started becoming extremely aggressive. So I used to have physical fights with people at home. I used to throw things around. I used to scream. I don't know how many times I've packed my bags to run away. My 10th standard, I must have written like multitude of suicide letters, planned in detail how to commit suicide. And my parents used to go to the school and say, I don't think she's feeling well. They said, no, 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 no. She is so good. She's such a silent, nice child. And that now I realize was masking. I used to mask so much at school. I used to hide so much at school, just want to be accepted, just want to understand what's happening with me, what's happening with the rest. Why I don't understand, why am I not like the others? That it got to that point, and I was, yeah. Uh, so it is extremely stressful. It masking causes severe mental health issues.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rakshita, and also Priyangee. And I think I sort of came to the masking question also because of how much you both were talking about the pressures to be neurotypical or to be not autistic, right? And I think that sort of got me thinking about just how what happens in your life while you are on the spectrum otherwise, right? So the inner life is something that's slightly different from the life that other people are, say, witnessing because they see you for a small period of time, right? So I thought that the insight on masking is some very good insight, especially for other neurotypicals, right? So thank
I
you so
think Srinidhi, I think before we move on, I think one particular crucial point I forgot that I should have raised is that it is very interesting because now we know this is masking, right? As a 10-year-old, I didn't know it was masking. So where did I learn? I mean, उस time पे there was no atypical or my name is Khan or Barfi, no matter how bad the representation. So I remember I was 10, 11 years old when a teacher punished me for something that I had not done, but I was so overwhelmed, I couldn't raise it. I couldn't bring out the fact that this wasn't me. And her punishment was to tell the entire class to not to talk to me for 1 week. It was sort of shaming, classic convent school move. So I, I that day, that at that moment, I realized that this is not going to work out for me in life. I cannot be bullied uh, like this, and I need to fix it. As a 11-year-old, I realized that, and I remember it was class 5, and we usually go in our school. We used to go to high school from middle school to high school in 7th. So the next 1 year, I made meticulous notes, observing all the popular girls. What do the sportsmen do? What does the goody two shoe do? What do the funny ones do? What do the bullies do? And I made meticulous notes as to how much I can mask and how much I can't. Like itna ho paega, itna nahi ho paega. And kitna ho paega to balance it out, because I was like, high school will be new me. And that is exactly what happened. So whoever met me after I was 11, 12 never really got to know me, except for a handful of people who actually had the bad fortune of living with me. Uh, so yeah, so the fact that, again, life teaches you a lot of coping mechanisms, some healthy, some unhealthy, and masking is one of them.
thank you so much. Yeah, sorry, Rakshita, continue.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I want to bring out another point. You had also asked about how I have been dealing with the masking now after the diagnosis. And the first time that I actually read about masking, I said, "No, this is not me. I don't speak like this. Okay, I'm a very straightforward person." And I remember what Priyangee said about imposter syndrome, right? I used to feel like, "No, I am not an imposter. I mean, there can be people who are something inside and show something outside, but I am not one of those." But over a period of, my first, the moment that I realized that I was masking was I was observing this autistic child in class. In his music class, he's non-speaking, and he was 11 years old, but he was in the first standard. Absolutely no education was happening for him. No learning, zero learning had happened for him. Like they were still doing ABCD with him, and he was still not getting ABCD type of thing. Okay. And I was observing him in music class, and and he couldn't sing the song that they were all singing, but so happily he was rocking. And suddenly I caught some children staring at me, and I noticed that I myself was rocking, and I was very happy. And then immediately when I realized that, oh, but this is what the children are noticing, I started crying. And I went out of that room, and I went to a space which was like nobody could see me, and then I went home, and it took me another 2-3 days. And I started noticing myself more and more that I actually do, hide a lot of these things. Like I don't rock, I don't sip in public. I'm so scared of talking to people because I'm always scripting because it's so tiring. The whole masking thing. And ever since that discovery, it took me quite a while to discover all the ways that I mask, and it's still work in progress, but I'm trying to unmask now. Trying to be unapologetically me. It's not easy. It's scary because we also do it for safety. So where to draw the line, like Priyangee said, how much should I mask? How much should I not mask? That's a very tough question for me. And I'm still trying to figure it out.
Thank you so much both for sharing. Before we go to the question answer round, Rakshita, would you like to read your poem? And Priyangee, would you like to do a short set?
So, okay, this is I think we are on a very interesting note because I wrote this poem just when I was in burnout. Okay, this is the first time I'm reading my poem aloud. Okay. In a vast field, shielded by the haze of smoke, I pat my hair, try to visualize how it looks. Yes, straight and neat, and I walk on. I smile, imagining a friend in front. Yes, I am not yet falling, and I walk on. I lift a foot and place it down, expecting the ground I cannot feel. Yes, it's not there, and I walk on. I look up, blinking at the sky I cannot see. Yes, it's too far away, and I walk on. I sense my center shifting, my legs crumbling. I look down, I see it, the bottomless well I'm going in, and I walk in. Yeah, so it's about masking and how my masking led to burnout.
Priyangee, over to you. And then there are tons of questions coming your way.
Sure. So like I said, I found out that I was autistic in 2020, early this year. And I formally found out that I was on the spectrum. I say formally because until now, nobody had acknowledged it, but I knew. And now, because it was by a professional, the cat was out of the bag. Though why would anybody put a cat in a bag? Poor thing. I don't know. So the first thing I did when I found out I'm autistic is I bleached my hair, because I read somewhere that bleach cures autism. You can see this pink, gorgeous pink hair. I can now firmly, confidently say that it is not correct. I am as autistic as ever, even more so, because, like we were discussing, I no longer mask as much. But now I have gorgeous hair, and who can say no to gorgeous hair? So 2020 is a very interesting year for all of us. Have you been wearing masks, everybody? I've been wearing since 1998. It's a part of my personality now. When I found out I'm autistic, I wasn't shocked. I was just a little surprised. Um, so I Googled a lot about autism, and I found out some very interesting facts that I'm supposed to be weird, not have empathy, and look a certain way to be autistic. I also had a moment of what next? Ab kya? So I control F'd a database of people I know of at the time, and I hit only one result of autistic woman, Hannah Gadsby. And my brain was like, she's a woman, she's autistic, she does comedy. I'm a woman, I'm autistic, I will also do comedy. And I signed up for a gig. It's very interesting when your brain is wired differently. Even day-to-day life is anyway funny, people are anyway laughing at you, might as well make money out of it. But the best part about being autistic is that even my anxiety is very low maintenance. You know how people jump off helicopters and cliffs for adrenaline? I just move from one side of the bed to the other, and it pretty much has the same effect. Sometimes I just switch the sofa side from the left side of the couch to the right, and my brain, if you map my brain, it would be equivalent to a person jumping off a cliff. Pretty low maintenance. But I do have trouble understanding sarcasm and phrases and proverbs because people don't usually say what they mean. I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of the phrase step into somebody's shoes? I never understood that phrase. First of all, no, I have very small feet. Secondly, no, I have flat feet. I will be in physical pain if I'm into your shoes. I don't want to wear your shoes, they smell. And thirdly, why do you think I have to go through the entire journey of your life to empathize with your pain? What do you think I am? Autistic? No, I am autistic. It is my point of saying we do have empathy, sometimes even more than you. Another phrase, love you to the moon and back. First of all, do I look like Elon Musk to you? I'm not interested in going to the moon. Secondly, why would you go to the moon? Thirdly, how would you go to the moon? Fourthly, अगर तुमको moon जाना ही है, if you really want to take a spaceship and go to the moon, at least go till Pluto and come back. Take a spaceship, go till Pluto, have a moment of self-doubt, lose and rediscover yourself, come back, and then profess love to me. I don't understand. Or even practical. If you're in Bombay, go to Borivali and come back. If you are in Delhi, go to Noida and come back. If you are in Bangalore, go anywhere and come back. Like, if somebody loves you, they will try. And is taking public transport for you in Bangalore, that is true love. Or even better, we are in a fucking middle of a pandemic. Stay home and don't go anywhere. You don't have to go to the moon and come back to show love for me. That's all.
Thank you so much. That's just opening it up to questions. We've received some questions. So I'm just going to ask which either one of you can um, reply. One of the questions is, what kind of relationships have supported you?
What kind means?
I mean, who the kinds of people that have supported you or helped you during this phase, let's say, or during life?
Like personality type or like the like mother-father type of relationship?
I would think relationship type.
Matlab like mother-father type relationship.
Yeah, friend, cousin, partner.
In my case, my parents, my brother, my husband, and one or two friends.
Okay. And what part of that relationship helps you feel supported?
They don't give up on me. They don't look at me as a defective, broken piece. But they do understand that there are some things that I can do brilliantly, and then there are some things that most people can do very easily, but I struggle with.
Okay. Priyangee, do you want to answer?
I think yes, for me, like I said, not many people know, but few friends and primarily partner, I would say. I think what this assessment has done is sort of made us understand why I need that kind of support, and it is not coming out from a place of laziness or inability or lack of desire to sort of compromise, but it is something that there is no point trying, pushing myself so hard to the point that I would burn out. There are some things, like she said, there are some things I can do and I can't do, and sab kuch karna zaruri nahi hai life mein. I don't have to do everything in life, and I can have a wholesome life without doing all of these things. Um, a lot of people like going clubbing, pubbing, and it's fun, and I don't do that, but that's okay. A lot of people, also a lot of people, uh, I it's just understanding that where it is coming from and sort of setting that boundary.
Yeah, that's lovely. Did y'all, another question that has come is if y'all had any apprehensions around dating when y'all did date two married women? I'm sorry.
I was never interested in dating. So when
Oh,
I was asked out, I did not even realize I was being asked out. I thought it was just a dinner. Um un,
Same here.
until he came back and said, this is a date. Be prepared to go on a date. And that's how, but I was, like I said, I was too tired all the time. So I have, I mean, like a lawyer in India, any litigating lawyer in India, I was working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. I did not have any headspace to come back home and think about romance. That wasn't a priority. So I don't think I will be able to answer that.
okay.
I didn't have any apprehension because I never looked for it.
Rakshita?
Okay, I didn't have apprehension, uh, but my stories were similar to Sam's story. I had four boyfriends before I married my husband. The first one, he used to give my brother. I was in seventh, he was in 10th, and he used to give my brother was in fifth, and he used to give my brother pens, these fancy pencils and fancy rubbers, erasers, and comics and chocolates, and say, अपनी बहन से बोल ना दोस्ती करने को. And my brother used to say, वो हर रोज आते हैं भैया, तू जाके उनसे हाय बोल ना. And I'm like, how do I even say hi to him? I don't want to say hi to him. And so to some girls in my class, I think he did the same thing to some girls in my class. I don't know how he put out by them. But then some girls in the class came and said, तुझे भगवान बहुत, punish करेंगे because you're being very mean. You are not responding to him. So I went and told him, ठीक है भैया, मैं आपकी girlfriend बन जाऊंगी. And yeah, that's it. That was my first. And I never spoke to him after that. We would walk. He would say, "Come, let's take a walk." And I would just walk with my head down. And he says, "Kuch bol na." And I'd just be like, "बोलना पड़ता है क्या?" And my second boyfriend also happened in a similar way. Like this guy was in my Hindi class. So I used to go to his class, and some people came and told me that he really likes you. And all his friends used to make a lot of fun of me. So I thought he's also making fun of me. And then I thought, okay, it's all a joke. And I said, okay, I'll also make fun of him. What? I'm going to show them that I am also strong. Okay, nobody can bully me. And I also said yes to him. Like, okay, fine, I'll become your girlfriend. Yeah, whatever. But then I didn't know that he was actually serious. And in class, he used to say, come sit next to me. And I used to go sit next to him. But I used to love Hindi classes, okay? I used to love the teacher and I used to love Hindi classes. So one day when he was trying to hold my hand, I got up and said, "Ma'am, Chaitanya is irritating me a lot because he's holding my hand. He's not letting me concentrate in class." And then that boy broke up with me.
Yeah. That answers a lot of questions about apprehensions, but also about what counts as dating. There is a slightly long question about which somebody wants to keep anonymous. Is that they self-diagnose themselves much later in life, and masking was such a constant process of responding since childhood that they feel it has hugely impacted their memories. Like they don't remember majority of their childhood and even their young adult college life. Because of the amount they had to mask to fit in. So, and they didn't in many ways get to make meaningful memories from in those moments. So if any of you have had such experiences or any thoughts on this, Priyangee is nodding away to glory.
Priyangee, you want to take this?
Yeah, me too. Because I've realized I don't have an answer to that question. I'm really sorry, because I'm still in the process of discovering things myself. But just to say that you're not alone in this. I have the very same problem. I don't remember anything beyond 2 to 3 years ever. Everything becomes a little blurry. I don't remember anything about school or about my university, and I practically lived in my university. It was a residential university, and I don't remember much. It could be because, as you said, that our mental and physical energies focused so much on masking and stuff, um, on passing off as neurotypical, that things sort of become hazy. It could be that, but while I could not answer your question, I want to say that I understand where you're coming from.
I have two things to tell you. So it could be a result of trauma, which we all go through a lot. It could also be a result of something that researchers are finding just now, that the way memories are made and stored in autistic people is very, very different. So accessing memory is also very different. Like what triggers your memory can be very different. So this kind of an issue, or therapists who are genuinely working with autistic people, they find this very difficult, because when they say things like, okay, what makes you happy, or how was your school life, you know, I don't know, I don't remember. It's very common. And one, it looks like when you're saying heavily masking, there's a lot of like effect on the mental health. So you should take care of your mental health. But also, like, try to find out, it need not just be visual, you know. I remember through movement. Like, I can't remember anything that I see. Right now, my mother's sitting in another room, and I've been with my mother for what, every day of my life, but I can't tell you how she looks. There's no picture that comes in my mind of my mother when I think of my mother. So so memory need not be just visual or auditory. It can, so I think in terms of movement, I can remember very well where things are, not by looking at them, but by where I place them, like my hand, in what direction my hand moved, not in what direction my eye saw. So try to figure out like what triggers your memory also. Like there could be very unusual ways of treating memory.
Thank you so much both for answering that. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question? If not, I have one last question.
Hi, I have a question. Hi, Priyangee, and hi, Rakshita. Thank you so much for this conversation. I am yet to go to a doctor to officially get myself diagnosed to be on the autistic spectrum. And even though I've suffered from depression for so long, these kind of diagnoses, still, I just haven't been able to go to the doctor. But I just wanted to ask you all one thing because I had missed the first 15 minutes of your session that I'm somebody who can't even mask. Like often at jobs, people have, like they may not have meant it rudely, but they'll be like, you look blank. It's as if like, nothing goes through to you. And, coupled with my depression, when I would have productivity issues, it would just make me feel, I think it just made sure that like the little productivity that I could have, like my time would have resulted in, I would fail even at that. So is there like did you ever struggle with like even this thing that the way you mask even that is failing for you? Have either of you ever gone through that? Because I'm struggling when it comes to that, and I just don't know how to like. I feel I'm interested in the moment, but people will say like, no, you're looking blank, and then of course I zone out. So I was just wondering, and it's okay if you don't have an answer, but I was just wondering if your plans ever failed, or something like that.
Priyangi?
Sure. I have this very same problem. Like if I like it's not just at work, even in school, my teachers would often look at me and say, I don't know if you understood that. Um and sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't, but like they would claim that my face is too blank. I don't have any I don't have any response registered to my face. Um and sometimes, so one of the things that I was told was nod a lot. So I invariably nod. I look like a bobblehead, like one of those toys on the car, like when I'm listening, to show that I have registered. But that sometimes does not work. I take notes a lot, which gives me a legit excuse to not allow them to see my face. um but but again, that also does not work sometimes. And um like in college, I would sometimes get very irritated, and I would say like, pucho mujhse kya puchna hai. Ask me a question and I will tell you that I understood and I paid attention to you. I did not go into fairyland. But like you said, there isn't any answer to because see that I think to I think after a point, people, after a long term working relationship, they would realize that this is how I pay attention and not point it out again. But it's just people expect certain things, certain facial muscle change from the face, and it doesn't work in us, and I don't know how to address that.
Priyangi had mentioned the imposter earlier. Is that related to masking, if at all? Could you please elaborate?
So the first thing, people saying you have a blank face, uh, it's okay, let them say it. Because the way they understand communication is very different from the way we understand communication. Like when Priyangee is talking, even I'm not even looking at her face. I'm only listening to her words, and I'm only going exactly by the words that she's talking. So I wouldn't even have this concern about, oh, does Priyangi have a flat face or bland face or bubbly face or whatever face? Because I'm not looking at her face. So the way they understand communication is radically different from the way you understand communication. So there is a huge gap. So it's okay, let them talk. You clarify when they say, I mean, that's the best we can do at this stage when they don't understand autism and when they don't understand our communication differences. The best you can do is clarify to them. The second about not being able to mask, uh, yeah, masking is, we mask, you know, how animals camouflage. The chameleon camouflages because it wants to safeguard itself from predators, and we camouflage so that we don't look like a different, you know, out of group alien which has to be attacked. But yes, it can get so stressful on us that we can, because it is a conscious effort. Even if it has taken us many years, it's a conscious effort. I don't mean you are conscious about it. I mean that your brain is doing it consciously. It's like 4625 into 429. Doing that kind of math every second of your life outside your home. Of course, it's going to be very stressful, and of course, there's going to be a point. You know the answer to that. You know how to do that sum. But it takes effort. And of course, there's going to come a point when you don't have any more energy to put in that effort, and you don't want to put in that effort anymore. And you just want to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that is where we come to a burnout. And one of the most important things that I have learned, and which I talk to about with children and I talk to about with other autistic adults, is we need to know where our limit is. Like Priyangee said, how much should we mask, how much should we not mask? I think it's very important. Not, if we don't want to get into that burnout stage, we need to see it coming. And we need to be able to tackle it. We need to unmask. And we need to advocate for this society to be more accepting towards us, so that we don't have to mask like this, and we don't have to put our mental health in so much danger.
Thank you so much for your responses. Thank you.
Sure.
I think the imposter syndrome is in my case has got nothing to do with autism. It is just an imposter syndrome that we have as human beings, and especially women, that we are not good enough.
Okay, thank you so much. This has been absolute pleasure for me to be able to share this space with both of you. Thank you so much for the vulnerability, the honesty, the hilarious jokes. I think just hearing both of you speak busts several myths about autism in general, because y'all are empathetic, funny, all kinds of things that autistic people are not supposed to be, right? So thank you so much for joining us. And it gives me a lot of joy to have you all here, but also that this conversation meant a lot to listen to you speak, and and I should probably stop talking now. Yeah, I'll just hand over to Nidhi, who will do a closing. Thank you both.
It's a beginning of many.
Fantastic. You're also your philosophy. So your jokes and your philosophy. It's amazing to just, we could have just gone on for so much more longer. It's a shame that we had, because the event was announced within a time limit, we do have to close. But thank you so much, Rakshita, and thank you so much, Priyangee, both of you. It was an honor to have you here, and just so much fun to hear and interact and engage and know your stories. So thank you so much, and thank you, Srinidhi, for dropping in out, but also being able to hold the conversation. Well, really grateful for all three of you, the way you held the space and brought out everything that needed to be said. So thanks to all three of you, and thank you everyone for joining in on Zoom and on Facebook. And we will be back with our last and final session of Vellapanti 2.0, and we'll keep you updated. If you want to get added to our mailing list, please do write to us on team@risingflame.org, or on our Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook handles or pages, and we'll be able to inform you of Vellapanti 2.0 or generically add you to Rising Flames list. We also recommend shortly we'll have these pieces up on our YouTube channel, so we will also share that once we're able to upload it to YouTube. And we'll see you soon shortly. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Thank you for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell button for updates. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or visit our website to know more about our work. Links in the description.